What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 48 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Monday, February 3rd, 2025. I'm your host, Zach Malin. But before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the NBA as the New York Knicks are in action tonight. A 7:30 start at MSG, and the Knicks come in as 6.5-point favorites, taking on the Houston Rockets tonight, and the Rockets come in at 32-16 on the year. Knicks are 32-17, have played one extra game, and the extra game ended up being a loss, and you could count that one towards the LA Lakers, who came in the other night on Saturday night primetime television and then took down the New York Knicks 128-112, and a bad loss for New York, who lost OG Anunoby in that one. He's going to be out for tonight's game against the Houston Rockets with a sprained foot, and it was a struggle for the Knicks on Saturday night. It was Josh Hart who was the leading scorer for the Knicks in the end, and when you know that Josh Hart is leading the team in points, it's probably not going to be as good of a day as you would have hoped for, and he ended up getting a triple-double with 26 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists. But it was Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson who really struggled in this one. Cat only 3 for 12 from the field. Brunson only 7 of 18. And the rest of the guys really didn't help out too much. OG Anunoby, I mentioned, got injured. Only played 17 minutes in this one. Mikal Bridges himself shot 50% from the field. Had 16 points, a solid output. It just wasn't enough for New York. And they fall to Los Angeles, snapping that long win streak that the Knicks had at 6 games, and then they head into tonight's game against the Rockets, looking to bounce back after that loss to LA. And in this game, it's really important that the Knicks make up for the loss of OG Anunoby for now and figure things out. Josh Hart also a game time decision. As you look at the other side, Jabari Smith Jr. out for this one, as well as Fred VanVleet will both miss the game. And then you look at the rest of the guys, and Alperen Sengun is also a game time decision for Houston. So if they're without all of those guys, it's going to be maybe a long day for them, and something that the Knicks will hopefully have to take advantage of. But right now, it's just about not allowing that loss on Saturday to turn into something bigger. And really, the Knicks had a great stretch of games where they took down some really solid teams out in the Western Conference. And Houston is right there near the top of the West, and is definitely no slouch of a game here. Even with the injuries, the Knicks need to step up big time tonight and rely on those star players to really bounce back after the loss a couple of days ago. But they're 6.5-point favorites tonight. Total sitting at 224.5. We'll see what happens. Tune in later as the Knicks host the Houston Rockets in the final game of a 5-game homestand at MSG. I mentioned the Los Angeles Lakers. What a Saturday night it was for them. They end up beating the New York Knicks 128-112 at MSG, but they were not done on Saturday night. They complete one of the biggest deals in NBA history, a 3-team blockbuster trade that nobody saw coming, sending Luka Doncic from the Dallas Mavericks out to LA to play for the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers end up getting Maxi Kleber and Markieff Morris in the deal as well from the Mavericks. They end up sending Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first-round pick from LA to Dallas. And then the Utah Jazz were the third team in the deal. They get Jalen Hood-Schifino along with 2 second-round picks. The biggest question about this trade, why would the Dallas Mavericks deal out Luka Doncic after all he's done for them? I mean, so far in his NBA career, an MVP candidate each and every year, all NBA, just nonstop, and what he's been able to do for the city of Dallas, a player that really has come in and looked like he was going to be a Maverick for life. In the end, why would they deal him at his age, 25 years old, and as well as they were in the NBA Finals less than a year ago, led by Luka Doncic? It just does not make sense in my mind. A bit of a head scratcher, you would say, for Dallas to do it with a guy at his age in Luka Doncic. There are some reasons for it, and a lot of reports coming out. They were concerned about Luka's conditioning as well as his defense, and Nico Harrison, the Mavericks GM, ended up saying that he believes defense wins championships. They end up getting a guy like Anthony Davis in return, an all defensive center, all NBA player who's, yes, one of the best bigs in the NBA, and rightfully so, has gotten a lot of noise about him in the last couple of years, and a lot of good noise. However, a couple of years before that, even though they won the championship in 2020, I mean, this is a guy who's dealt with loads of injuries throughout his NBA career and hasn't been able to really stay healthy. Yes, he's taken a lot of great strides in the last couple of years and has been able to stay on the floor and avoid those injuries. But, I mean, those injuries can come back for a guy who now is 31 years old, and it could end up being a problem once again. Some stances, it does make sense. When you look at the Dallas Mavericks, they needed a monster big down low and a guy to really pair with Kyrie Irving as well. But they had two guards in Luka and Kyrie to pair up and really figure out the center position and the big man position down low. And they just didn't do it. They end up getting Anthony Davis, but they give up Luka Doncic. I understand some of the reasonings from Dallas where they say that they didn't want to give him the supermax. One of the reasons being the conditioning that I mentioned a moment ago. But another reason, he does not play too much defense, and they really want to win now, and they're in a win now type of mode. The question on that is, you have a 25-year-old all-NBA player at the caliber of a guy like Luka Doncic. How can you not put a guy like that on the open market? See what you can get from anybody else. They end up getting a solid deal from the Lakers. They get Anthony Davis, and that's a big-time player. But I feel like if you're trading a player like that, you got to get a lot more, whether it looks like a player like an Anthony Davis, plus the fact that you got to get a lot of picks in the deal. They only get one pick from the Lakers, and that comes in 2029. Lakers are going to be pretty good in 2029 if they're led by Luka Doncic, in my mind. I mean, they're going to bring in guys to surround Luka now, and they have the future set for them out in LA. Even when LeBron retires, they say, well, we got Luka, so we'll be fine, and continue to go from there. How do you not get something bigger in return if you are the Dallas Mavericks? That's my biggest question. I understand that not wanting to give them the supermax and their concerns about conditioning and defense and all of that in today's NBA game, it just does not make sense to me. The package that they got, and Anthony Davis is really, really strong, one of the best bigs in the NBA. But like I said, those injury concerns are much bigger than the defense concerns of Luka Doncic that you can probably work on in the next 10, 15 years. That's how young he is at 25. This is a guy who could be playing for a long, long time if he keeps himself in the correct shape. Dallas Mavericks could help him with that. That's not something that they wanted to focus on. And I mean, that is a monster risk in my mind, dealing a guy like Luka Doncic at his age for the package that they got. So I'm expecting a lot bigger of a package for Dallas, but understand some of the concerns. It just still doesn't make sense overall why they would end up dealing him. Great deal on the other side for the LA Lakers. There were reports that they didn't really expect to re-sign Anthony Davis in a couple of years. So they get to deal him. They end up getting Luka. They don't have to give Luka a supermax now as well. They'll give him a big contract extension, of course, to keep him there. But, I mean, I think even LA themselves, Rob Pelinka and crew, were shocked on the phone when they said that Luka Doncic was available. I assume that they would drive everybody to the airport. LA would to get a guy like Luka out in LA. So what a deal it was, and the Lakers get their star man of the future as Luka Doncic traded to the LA Lakers. What a deal it was, and obviously a lot more to talk about in terms of this deal as it goes on as one of the biggest in NBA history. Switching things to MetLife, a quick update on the New York Jets as Aaron Glenn continues to hire more and more guys to his staff for this upcoming season. And when you look at the hires that he ends up bringing in, Steve Wilks comes in as the defensive coordinator. He also gets Tanner Engstrand to be a first-time offensive coordinator. Chris Banjo comes in to be the special teams coordinator, and he also gets Scott Turner to come in today to be the passing game coordinator. So a big time move, and all of them big time moves in my mind for Aaron Glenn, a guy who's really just not taking things lightly here and brings in his staff really, really quickly. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the Super Bowl yet, and Aaron Glenn almost has his staff all set for this upcoming season. And I think that's going to be a big thing for the Jets, something that Jets fans have to be really happy about so far and what they've seen from Aaron Glenn. So really the question overall is what is going to be the deal with this offense? And of course, Aaron Glenn, a defensive mind, and something that he's really going to focus on is the defense. He has a bit of a responsibility, though, for this offense and how it's going to be run. He does now get a couple of guys in there, Scott Turner, like I said, Tanner Engstrand as well, to really help out this group, and even some coaches on the offensive line. So really the question is, what is it going to be? And he's going to have those guys to really help him out and really make this offense a lot better than it was just a season ago. So still the question, like I said, of who's going to be the quarterback for next season, but you got to be happy as a Jets fan right now. All of these hirings and some great moves, it looks like, by new head coach Aaron Glenn. Let's finish things off today with a college basketball update. It was a crazy weekend, a crazy weekend overall in college basketball. A lot of upsets and a lot of blowouts, a lot of games that weren't even close, and then others that really came down to the wire. Everything we could have expected on a great Saturday of college hoops. And Duke takes down North Carolina. That was the biggest one, an 87-70 win at Cameron, where they completely dominated Carolina throughout that one. And Carolina started to pick things up in the second half, but that game was way out of reach, and Duke did a great job early in that one and really got to North Carolina, who's been really struggling now, has 10 losses on the year. Real struggle right now down in Chapel Hill, and maybe Hubert Davis's job almost on the line here with how bad it's been so far this season. You look at some of the other games. Iowa State goes down against Kansas State, a shocking one at Hilton Coliseum, and really just a game that Iowa State wasn't prepared for. They did not come out ready, and that second half was horrible from Iowa State. They end up giving up 43 points and only put up 26. They lose it 80-61, a blowout on their home floor. Tennessee gets revenge on Florida, 64-44, and really pretty funny when you look back at Tennessee. Really struggled in that one game down in the swamp. Really 40 points up on the board. That was it. And Florida dominated. Tennessee said right back at you, gave them a taste of their own medicine. And Florida only has 44 points in 40 minutes of play. So that Florida offense that has been really strong so far this year was not strong in that one. Really outmatched in the end by the Volunteers. Final couple of games, some more upsets. Texas Tech takes down Houston on the road, 82-81 in overtime, in a game that they were without their head coach as well as their best player in JT Toppin. Both were ejected, and they end up still winning the game in overtime. Huge win on the road for Texas Tech, a real dark horse right now in the Big 12, and what a team they are. They moving up in the rankings, and I say a dark horse, but I mean, they're really being put on the map right now and near the top of the Big 12 so far this season at 8-2. They have a chance to win it in my mind. I mean, they have some real good wins up on the board. It's just about beating up on some of those bigger games and winning those games, whether it's on the road or even just comfortably winning at home down in Lubbock. Very tough place to play. And if they can beat those teams, the Baylors, as well as Kansas, Iowa State, and Houston, which they've already beat Houston right there, it's going to be a long season and a great season for the Red Raiders down in Lubbock. So big win for them. Then you get some more upsets. Michigan State goes down on the road at USC 70-64. UConn goes into Milwaukee and takes down Marquette 77-69 and upsets them on the road just when you thought UConn was down and out in the Big East this year. They pull off the biggest win of the season so far in their minds. Then you look at Arkansas taking down Kentucky. The return of John Calipari. All the noise about Kentucky and booing him, and the fans were ready to go. And Arkansas came out of nowhere. And all the noise of how bad Arkansas has been this year. They put up 89 at Rupp and win it 89-79 in John Calipari's return. And what a win it was for the Razorbacks. Could that be a bounce back and a boost for them to get this season going? Kansas goes down after leading by 19 at halftime. They allow 60 in the second half. Baylor wins it 81-70 down in Waco. And just a couple of more. Louisville goes down as Georgia Tech finds a win. And Louisville, who's been real strong this year, falls to 9-2 in ACC play, and 16-6 on the season. And Georgia Tech really settles things down there after a rough start to the season for them. Gets a monster win on their home floor. So a lot of upsets, a lot of noise coming out of college hoops. And ended up yesterday being Illinois, who took down Ohio State. Oregon ends up losing to Nebraska in a bad week for the Ducks as they were humbled by the UCLA Bruins earlier this week. And just a bad week makes it a lot worse here as Oregon gets their 6th loss of the season, falls to 5-6 in Big Ten play. A real shocker there, and something that not many expected heading into this season and the first season of Big Ten play for the Oregon Ducks in terms of college basketball. Big one, we got to talk about it. Let's look to tonight's game. It's Iowa State at number 8. They fall down 5 spots in the rankings after the loss to Kansas State. They go on the road to Allen Fieldhouse and take on number 16 Kansas. A 9 o'clock start for this one tonight. And Kansas comes in as 2.5-point favorites. Total sitting at 147.5. The question in this one is, can Iowa State bounce back after a bad loss like that against Kansas State? Kansas, on the other hand, is sputtering just a little bit. 6-4 in Big 12 play, 15-6 on the season. I mean, they're coming off some bad losses as well. And I think the loss in Waco, where they allow 60 points up in the second half, just cannot be a good sign for Kansas. And it's been a bit of a struggle for Bill Self and his guys so far this season. But they have to bounce back. I think in the end, Kansas wins this one. Iowa State probably keeps it close. It comes down to the wire. But I think Kansas on their home floor, tough place to play at Allen Fieldhouse. I think they got to bounce back big time here. And I think they will in the end to take down the Cyclones of Iowa State, who actually beat Kansas pretty comfortably earlier this season. A 74-57 win against number 9 Kansas at the time at Hilton Coliseum. That one a month ago. And like I said, a comfortable win in the end, less than a month ago, a comfortable win. But I think Kansas has to bounce back here, and I think all the pressure is on them with how bad they've played the last couple of games, and they really need to bounce back and prove themselves here. And on their home floor, I will not pick against them at Allen Fieldhouse. So we'll see what happens, but it should be a great game tonight, 9 o'clock, as Iowa State takes on Kansas, a ranked matchup. Tune into that one later. But that'll do it for episode 48 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Mellowman. Thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Wednesday.